everybody, it's John, your Indian Cine-MANIAC, with another 10-ish minute review. So, I want to thank everybody for the community poll. We had about 50 of you who responded, and some of you gave a long list of films you want me to review. But I've taken, I don't know, I think I've got about 20 of them, and I'm going through them one at a time. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And I've got a lot of movies to watch, so I'll get through them as quickly as I can. So the film I did the latest 10-ish minute review off the poll is 2016's Airlift. Now this was recommended by at Shrish Singh 9791 and also Dharmendra Babu 9622. Two people recommended this film, and I knew about this film. I saw the trailer for it because I'm a big Akshay Kumar fan. So I did. I was a little familiar with the movie, not the event. Let me be clear on that. And I claim ignorance to that. I knew nothing about it. So this movie came out in 2016. It was directed by Raja Menon, who also wrote it. It starred Akshay Kumar, who I've seen a lot of stuff. Baby, Kesari, Oh My God, 1 and 2, OMG, 1 and 2, a bunch of Khakee, Nimrat Kaur, I think that's how I pronounce it, who I saw in the Lunchbox. He was very good in the Lunchbox. Kumud Mishra, who was in Sultan in Tiger 3, and Prakash Belewadi, who I saw in Pathaan. Most of the other cast I did not recognize. Now, excuse me, I don't know why I cough when I get on this thing. So I knew nothing about this event, and I know that this film is based on a true story, and it's about an Indian businessman named Mathuuny Mathews who helped 170 countrymen leave Kuwait during the when Iran invaded Kuwait in 1990. So I knew nothing about this event. So the movie was really interesting to me, and I obviously did some research after the film because I wanted to know a little more about it. I'm sorry I'm so ignorant about it, but I will say that this film had. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it definitely, if you've seen Argo, Ben Affleck's movie, and even a little Schindler's List. Now I'm not saying that Schindler's List was the Holocaust and it was a tough film to watch. This maybe could have gone down that route if this guy didn't do what he did. But that's the two movies that I thought of as I was watching this. I also understand and reading some of the reviews and reading, researching this film, that a lot of the people who were actually involved with this evacuation weren't really happy with the film. The way the government was portrayed, the way it seemed like there was really one person that did all of this. Um, and I found that kind of interesting. So they were saying, it was a rehash of history. Even the way they made the Air India pilots look wasn't very favorable to them, and they weren't happy about that. Now I have to say, I'm glad I didn't do the research before I watched the film, because that didn't in fact impact my enjoyment of the film at all. When and listen, anytime you do a true story, any film, there's always going to be liberties taken, right? There's going to be characters created, there's going to be situations created to make the film more dramatic. That's just the reality of it. But I have to say, this movie had me right from the beginning, and the tension in this film was there throughout the movie. So at the end, when you feel the relief of what they went through, I mean, you feel it viscerally as a viewer. So let's start with the story. So the story is about a shrewd businessman who you meet at the beginning. They changed the name, obviously, to Ranjit, played by Akshay Kumar. And your introduction to him is he's a shark businessman. In fact, the nickname, he's the demon. And he's a little tough on his wife. And then they go to this party where, of course, you have to have the first musical number. So when that first musical number happened, because frankly, it was just so like, why is this number here? They go, there's a band playing at this party. Now Akshay gets up and starts singing with the band. Now they're dancing. Okay. So I was like, how are they going to work this kind of stuff into the rest of this film, knowing what the story's about? I'm happy to say they didn't do that. I did feel that musical number was a little out of place, but whatever. So basically the story is this. And it happens quickly. In fact, they go to this party, then they show a Kuwaiti labor camp, and it's in the middle of the night. A guy gets up to get some water, and there's this giant explosion that blows the whole building up. Now you see tanks coming over the hills, you see fires, oil fields on fire, and it's the beginning of the Iraqi invasion into Kuwait. I mean, that's how quickly this all happens. And then things start to fall apart in Kuwait. The soldiers, all the Iraqi soldiers, they're gunning people down, including the businessman's driver, in a pretty tense scene, and the whole thing's falling apart. Now there are some things about the film I didn't understand. If you were Indian, they were going to leave you alone. If you were Kuwaiti, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about, like, they were killing a lot of people. And is that the Kuwaiti people? Is that Muslim people? But they wouldn't go after India because Indians, because India supported them prior. Okay, I didn't really understand that 100%, but regardless, he makes a deal with this. He's now called the Emir, an Iraqi, who was played by an Indian, by the way. I thought that was kind of interesting. Obviously, he was an Indian and not Iraqi. And I also know Akshay learned Arabic for this film. So he goes meet this guy who worked a security detail when he was doing business in Iraq, and he didn't recognize the guy. So now the guy's on a power trip, and he's a little short guy too. So he's got the Napoleon complex. Well, he makes a deal with them. You know, he'll give him money, but he's going to leave him and his family alone and leave the Indians alone. Well, so now he goes back to his, and he's a wealthy businessman. He owns I think it was a construction company, and all the workers are there with their families. So they're like refugees in this office building. Well, now he makes another deal where they'll let him bring all these people to this school, and there's like, they think there was 100,000 there. I know they ended up evacuating 170,000, but there was definitely at least 100,000 at this school, and they're trying to feed them, they're trying to clothe them, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, because now at one point the Iraqi soldiers come in and steal half their food. And he goes to the Amir again, and he goes, "You said you weren't doing anything." He goes, "No, I said I wouldn't do anything to you, but I can't control what those guys do." So it's his task to get these people out of Kuwait. And he's calling the government, the Kuwaiti government, the Iraqi government, the Indian government, and no one's real responsive except for this one guy, um, Coley, I think his name was. And he's not even the guy that's responsible for the area that he's calling about, the Gulf. That's what he called it, the Gulf. So there's a lot of bureaucratic stuff going around, right? Well, ultimately, he gets the people out, and I'll get into more detail about it. So the story, I mean, how can you not give the story a 5? Because it's a true story, and it's a pretty incredible story, that they were able to get 170,000 people out of there into Jordan, on Amman, I think it was, um, and eventually to India. So it's incredible. And again, the fact that I knew nothing about this. I don't remember this. Um, I don't remember reading about it. So I feign ignorance, especially when you realize it was the biggest evacuation of a group of people ever in history, which is a pretty amazing thing. We had the airlift in Afghanistan. I won't even get into that. And that was, a lot of people. But I mean, this is like, a country. You're moving the population of a country almost. I mean, it's just crazy. So I'm going to give the story a 5. The acting, I thought, look, this movie lives or dies by Akshay Kumar. Now, I'm a fan of his films. I like him a lot. And I thought this performance was different than a lot of his other performances. Sometimes these actors, they have certain shtick that they do. SRK does it, Amir Khan does it, but he starts off kind of a, he's kind of a jerk at the beginning, and then you see him like realize what's going on around him, and he's got to do something about it. For he considers his work as his family, and I really thought his performance, like the scene, there's one scene where he makes a deal with the Iraqis to get people out on this boat, and and there's a song after it, and they're all celebrating. He loads everyone up on the bus, and then he gets a call that there's been a blockade. The boat has to turn around, and the emotions that he went from the high to the low, and now he feels like he failed everybody. So I thought he was great, and his wife, who didn't have a lot to do. Look, I thought she was much better in the lunchbox. But I will say there was a scene. There's this guy, Mr. George, who's just a pain in the ass the whole time. He was kind of a stupid character because no one could be that big a pain, but he he was, and he frankly blamed Ranjit for the failures. And his wife, who really hasn't understood why he's doing this. Why don't we just get her and their daughter out of there? Because the Emir said that they can go, and he wouldn't stop them. But he stayed because he wanted to save everybody. So there's that scene where Mr. George starts railing on Ranjit. He doesn't say anything. And then the wife goes off on him in this monologue. And it's a great scene. And he, ripping into him. And that's when they kind of reconnect, and you get that she understands now why he's doing this. And I thought that was a really great scene. But I thought everybody was good. I thought he was I mean, I would give I mean, because of him, I'll give the acting a 4, because he really was the strongest thing in it, I think. Um, Everyone else was good, but he was the best, I thought. So I'm going to give that a 4. The music, okay, that opening dance scene, you know my feeling on this. They put these songs in where I don't think they belong. So putting that one aside, I thought the background music, the incidental music was really good. Um, and they do this one song at the end. By the way, it's a very patriotic pro-India movie. And they're at this I think it was an airport. I think that's what it was. And all the flags are up except India. And then they finally decide, the bureaucrats finally decide to give all these refugees passports, temporary passports. So now you see the Indian flag being put up, and it's just this really like super patriotic music going, and I could imagine being in the theater while this is happening, and the crowd must have gone nuts at that scene. So that was really cool. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. So the music was, like I said, the incidental music, the background music, I really liked. There was no really ridiculous musical numbers other than that first one. And that one really didn't bother me that much because frankly, it's the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then the movie gets into all the all the chaos. Um, so I'll give the music a 3, you know. Overall, I'm going to give the movie a 4. I really liked it. And again, it was able to keep the tension up for like the entire film. Now, I knew the outcome, right? Because in it, when you do the trailer and when you read the description of it, it talks about the largest airlift in history, blah blah. So they got out, but it didn't take away from the tension because there seemed to be a hurdle every time he thought he was going to get them out. Um, so there was a few scenes I want to. There was a oh yeah, there was a scene. Oh, there's a scene when the Amir is questioning Ranjit, and again, this is just for me. I just cracks me up because I get these references. He talked about Amitabh Bachchan and Dewar. So I'm like, okay, I know what that reference is. So I love that I know these references. The set design was fantastic. The battle scenes with the tanks and stuff was very CGI-ish. It looked a little, even the fires, they looked a little cartoonish. It didn't really bother me that much, but the sets themselves, when they were going through these like not, yeah, some of them were bombed out cities, just wrecked cities. It looked incredible. And I would love to see some pictures from that time period in Kuwait and see how close they were because it really looked interesting. They also did this thing whenever they were in vehicles, they had a camera in the back seat or on the side facing out. So you'd see the driver and you'd also see what's going on in the background. And they were like tracking shots that went on for a long time. They were really cool. So I appreciated that. Oh, there was another great scene, and it kind of because when the wife did this monologue, there was a scene where someone was going to negotiate some kind of deal, and she said, "You have to go because you're the best negotiator." Well, there's one scene where he's talking to the emir, and he wants to get he wants to get people out, and the emir says, "Well, no, we can't do that." And he goes, "Well, I've already gotten the approval from Iraq and Saddam Hussein. So if you you don't want to go against them." And he goes, "Well, I want $100,000." So he picks up the phone and he wants to talk to somebody in Iraq. And now the emir's all freaking out, right? And he goes, "Okay, okay, okay. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that." Well, then you find out, did you really have that deal? His wife's asking him, "Do you really have that deal?" He goes, "No." So he was bluffing. But the way he played it, it was great. It was just great. The look on his face, like he was negotiating a deal, and he was getting one over on this little weasel guy. Um, and there's another a scene. Again, this is the Air India pilot said that they were portrayed not accurately because in the film it says that they were really hesitant to do this airlift because they didn't want to fly into a war. So they gave Coley this great scene where he gives this impassioned plea about saving the people, and they end up doing it. But apparently that's not the way it was. Also, the government workers I guess were a lot more cooperative than they show in this film. But again, you got to have tension, right? So there's the tension. You've got the bureaucratic, uh, the hurdles that they always put up. Most bureaucracies do that, right? So it added to the tension. It didn't bother me. And if people didn't like that, I get it. But as a viewer, didn't bother me at all. Um, there is, okay, the fifth song is Hail Motherland. That's the one where they put the flag up. And there's another scene. So there were Kuwaitis amongst these Indians, and if they were found out as Kuwaitis, they probably would have been killed. And there's a scene where there's a young guy who's looking for his wife Shazeen, and he lost her when the invasion first happened. And there's another Kuwaiti woman with a baby, and they're going through the passport lines, and they're asking her if she's Indian, and she's. I guess I'm not sure. Does she not? I didn't think she spoke Hindi, so maybe that's what it was. But then he walks over and says, she's my wife. Her name is Shazeen." So they let her in, but he stays because he wants to find his real wife. I thought that was a really good scene. And Akshay Ranjit's looking at him as he walks away. Um, and they had a couple of the two scenes, well, or one scene really stuck out for me. But they also did this thing when the caravan left to head towards the border of Jordan, I think it was, or Amman. I'm not sure which one. Um, they did this really overhead shot where you see the caravan of buses and cars with luggage sticking out windows on top of the roof. It was a great scene. And then the other scene that I loved, and I can't believe this actually happened, but maybe it did. Um, so the caravan is heading towards the border, and there's a four Iraqi soldiers blocking the road. And Ranjit's in the first car with his wife, his daughter, the Kuwaiti woman, and her daughter. So he says, "Stay in the car." So he gets out. He says, "I'm Indian. I'm Indian. I'm Indian." Now the wife gets out, and she's got the passport. So they look at the passports. Everything's okay. Well, now they want to look at the woman in the back's passport. So now they realize something's wrong. They're going to beat up him. They're going to rape the wife. Then he goes nuts on him, right, and starts beating them up. Well, now they get the best of him, and this was just incredible. You look the way they shot it, they had the camera down low, and it was up this big hill. All of a sudden, you see people from the convoy out of the vehicles coming over the horizon, right? And I don't know, there's like you see like 15 to 20 of them, right? Then now all of a sudden more people and more people and more people. So it looks like, there's 1,000 people. And Akshay looks up the hill. All the soldiers look up, and he says to the guy, "Put down your gun, and we'll let you live." That scene was really great and really powerful. I loved it. I'm sure there was creative license with that. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this film. It really kept my interest the whole time. So I appreciate that recommendation. And another a good performance by Akshay Kumar. Becoming a big fan of his too. So, thank you, those of you that suggested that. I'm not sure what the next film's going to be, but it'll be off the list. And I'm still I haven't watched The Family Man yet, which I plan on doing. So that's also I'm gonna interweave that with the next film. So so that's it. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, let me just you know how I feel about you guys, right? So thank you for that. Thanks for continued support. Thanks for your comments. I love it. And we'll talk to you soon with another community poll. 10 Minute Review. Thanks, everybody.